Hello. Welcome to Advanced Training. And before I go into the teaching topic of the video, which is going to be the main source, I just want to take a moment as to why we have this strategically placed at this point in time in your career. Fact is, there's certain things that if we taught you without having experience doing the job, it wouldn't be as easy to grasp. But now you've done some appointments, right? And what we said in training is we said, hey, you're going to get off to one of three types of starts. Some of you are going to crush it out of the gates. And if that's you, you might already be at a pay raise or two or three, or in some cases, I've had people who've had $10,000 first weekends on the job. Hey, that's awesome. Um, this video is going to help you take it higher. We also said some of you are going to struggle a little bit out of the gate. Maybe it's just due to lack of appointments. Maybe it's due to a lack of confidence. Maybe it was a little bad luck. But whatever, this video is going to help you take it higher. And if you're in the middle, which is where most people are, I mean, what normally happens at this point is you do some demos. We tell you people are going to like the knives. People like the knives. We tell you people are going to buy the knives, and people buy the knives. I'm recording this video on March 1st, 2023. And regardless of the success you've had as an office, we've sold about $150,000 worth of Cutco year to date just out of Jacksonville. We've got multiple representatives, over $10,000, $20,000 in sales. We have people who've been doing this for over 2 decades now on our team. So people buy the knives, right? And people give recommendations, people booking appointments, right? The goal of your first weekend is just for you to know what we know. Cutco's a quality product. You'll never see someone with knives that are better than Cutco. You can make sales, you can get recommendations. So if you're taking notes, the first thing I would jot down is this. Right now, you are exactly where you're supposed to be. Right now, you are exactly where you're supposed to be in your Cutco business. See, selling Cutco is a science, not an art. It's a science, not an art. We told you people would do demos and they did. We told you people would buy and they did. We told you people would give recommendations and they did. This weekend, we talked about doing three things: following the script, communicate during your appointments, and being enthusiastic. So I want you to take a moment before we dive into anything further. And I want you to rate yourself on those three things on a scale of 1 to 5. So first, following the approach. 5 being like I read everything word for word every single time. 1 being like I didn't even open up the website. Right. Number 2 is communicating from your appointments. If the customer was buying a set, just calling right after they picked out the set that they want. If the customer didn't buy a set, calling on slide 12. 5 being like you do that every single time. You know, if you forgot to call it all, that would be a 1. And last thing is be enthusiastic. And I don't mean just being enthusiastic when you're talking about the knives. Honestly, even though I haven't talked to you on your demos at this point, like I recorded this video before you started, I would imagine everyone you showed Cutco to could tell it was a good product. It's very easy to be excited during that portion. We spend 2 afternoons teaching you what makes Cutco the best in the world, teaching you how to explain it. I would imagine that part you did pretty well. Also, the enthusiasm, though, is the entire demo, not just the product information part, right? If someone's super excited during the product information, but at the end, when we show the 3 sets, if the customer's like, I don't know if I can get a set today, if the enthusiasm takes a nosedive, honestly, that's just kind of weird to the client, right? We tell you 10 to 20% of people buy popular sets, meaning 80 to 90% of people buy during the drop down. And if a representative's super excited, but then asks for the order on a $1,500, $2,000 package, and the customer's unsure, if they're like, oh, okay, um, we do we do have some smaller sets if you want to see those. Like, of course they're not going to buy. That makes it sound like the smaller sets suck. One great thing about Cutco, and one of the reasons we write up orders in every zip code and all different socioeconomic statuses, as you drop down in price, the quality stays high. You're just dropping down in quantity and allowing people to build as their budget allows. So a 5 on enthusiasms, like I was pumped at the beginning. I showed them the popular set. If they said no, it's like, hey, no problem. We've got options for everybody. Let me just show you everything we have. I bet we can find something that works better for you. And you continue that enthusiasm as you drop down. So take a moment, rate yourself on those areas. And just from doing this for a long time, if you got a lot of fives, you probably did pretty well, right? Chances are, if you didn't give yourself a five in every single category, if you just took whatever you gave yourself less than a five on, brought it up to a five, you would improve your results dramatically. So as far as the teaching today, I'm going to talk about two things. I'm going to talk about mindset and skill set. This video is the mindset video. Next video is the skill set video, because with the proper mindset, through repetition, doing lots of appointments, you'll develop the skill set. So one thing we're going to talk about is the 10, 10, 80 rule. And the 10, 10, 80 rule applies to everything you'll do in Cutco. And it's 10% always, 10% never, 80% depends on the salesperson. So 10% of people always give recommendations. 10% of people never give recommendations. 80% of clients, whether or not they give recommendations, is based on how you ask. Same thing with sales. 10% of people always buy. 10% of people don't cook and don't care. You could tell them the homemaker is $15.49. And they're like, honestly, Darren, seems great, but I haven't turned on my oven in 2023. I just never cooked. Not much you can do there, right? 80% of people, they like the product. They would use the product. It's better than what they own. And there's somewhere between $4,000 and $40 that they can find a combination of product and price that works well for them. If I had to summarize your job into one sentence, it would be this. Your job is to help everyone who likes Cutco to get Cutco, and specifically to help everyone get as much Cutco as possible at a price they feel comfortable with. Right? So your job is to help everyone who likes Cutco get Cutco, and help everyone get as much Cutco as possible at a price they're comfortable with. Because someone who with no Cutco, they're not going to enjoy their knives very much. Someone with one knife's at least going to have one good knife. They're probably not going to use it properly. They're probably going to be using their trimmer to, like, cut up chickens and stuff, but it'll still work better than the butcher knife they got from Walmart. Now, if someone has 2 or 3 knives, well, hey, you got a vegetable chopping knife, you got a meat knife, you got a little paring knife, solid little set. If someone has a block set and they have that plus some table knives plus the shears, like, they're going to be happier. Someone who cooks it all, they're going to be happier with a homemaker rather than an essentials, because sometimes you need a bread knife, sometimes you need a carving set, sometimes you're going to want like the trimmer or the spatula spreader, or maybe some of the forks. All right. And if they really enjoy cooking or they appreciate quality, they're going to be much happier with a signature or an ultimate than they will be with just a couple pieces. So the more Cutco they have, the more they're going to like it. And last thing we're going to talk about is what it takes to be a great rep. So this is how to Cutco. Really, if you can do 5 things, you're going to be good at the job. One is you have a plan, right? A plan and a schedule. The only difference between this job and other jobs is other jobs, they give you your schedule and you have to plan your personal stuff around that. Here you can plan your personal stuff out first and then put Cutco around that. What I would recommend, your first week on the job, do as much as you can. Maximize your fast start. See how well you do managing yourself, because some of you already do well with that. Some of you don't do so well with that. I know for me, I was not the most organized, best time management person when I started Cutco. So I leaned on my manager a little bit in my weekly one-on-one. Just every week, I would be like, hey, here's the stuff I got going on outside of Cutco. We would look at it, and then we would sit down and make goals together for things inside of Cutco. So we can help you with that if you're not that strong. But I would say for first week, see what you can get done. If you feel good about that schedule, keep doing it. If you feel it's a little light, do more demos the next week. If you feel it's a little hectic, you can always scale it back and adjust. Number 2 is your list and your referrals. Number 3 is being able to book appointments. So scheduling and booking. Number 4 is your demo and closing. Basically, these are the sales skills. And if you notice, steps 1 through 3 have nothing to do with actually selling the knives. Because fact is, if you have a plan and follow it, if you have people to call and you call them, and then once they answer, you're able to set a time, you've seen just from the little experience that you have that people do the demo, people buy, people give recommendations. And you can probably also tell every time you're doing it, you're getting better and better, and you'll continue to do so. So the rest of this video is mainly going to be focused on 1 through 3. Step 4 is going to be covered in the next video. Because if you do 1 through 3, you're going to be ready to rock. And I mentioned there's 5. So there's one thing more important than any of this. And above this, in all caps, I want you to write the word belief. People feel what you believe more than they believe what you say. And there's 2 parts to belief. Part number 1, belief in the product. Or actually, rather, part number 1, belief in yourself. If you don't believe in yourself, doesn't matter how much you believe in the product, right? Part number 1, believe in yourself. You can do this. We believe in you. That's why we selected you for the role. You believe in yourself. That's why you showed up to training. Nothing's easy at the beginning. Even if you did pretty well, these demos you did this past weekend are going to be the worst ones you ever do. Just like when you start anything for the first time, there's a learning curve. You have to respect that. So believe in yourself. You can do this. In your situation, we have people that are successful. Point number 2, belief in your product. Point number 2, belief in your product. People do and should buy Cutco. There's 2 truths that if you want to be successful here, you just need to know as much as you know that like there's oxygen in the air, right? You don't go to bed at night being like, man, I really hope when I wake up tomorrow morning, the oxygen's still in the air. Otherwise, it's going to be really hard to breathe. Like, no, sun rises, sun sets, we make sales, we get recs. Been doing this for 70 years as a company. Here's truth number 1. Truth number 1, everyone can afford Cutco. Truth number 1, everyone can afford Cutco. Now, again, when I say everybody can afford Cutco, I realize like some people are homeless. There's like a newborn baby can't afford Cutco. But what I mean is anyone we would do an appointment for, any adult with a job, they can afford Cutco if they want to, 100%. And this weekend, if you had an appointment and you called in after and you said, hey, they didn't buy because they couldn't afford it, we probably didn't like make that big of a deal of it. We were probably like, oh, you'll get them next time. Because again, you're new, you're newer in your sales rep journey. We just want repetitions. I want you to know after today, after watching this video, you're never allowed to call in from a demo and blame your client as to why you didn't make a sale. More specifically, to blame the fact that they said they couldn't afford it. Because anyone with a job can afford Cutco. Like, everyone can afford a trimmer, right? A trimmer, it's basically $80, right? That's $40 a month on a toupee. That's about $10 a week out of a weekly budget. So what this means, if someone lives in Florida and they make minimum wage, they take out the trash at Taco Bell and they make $10 an hour, it costs them an hour's worth of work out of an entire week to buy that trimmer. I'm not saying go show people that make minimum wage at Taco Bell, but what I'm saying is anyone that works full time and has a job, if they want to buy Cutco, they can buy Cutco. Like buying a trimmer is literally the same as they were planning on cooking. It's raining. They don't feel like they don't feel like grilling out. So they're like, hey, let's just go to Applebee's and get food tonight. And they go out and they drop, 60, 70, $80, depending if they get drinks, they get appetizers. It's really not a big deal. Here's truth number 2. Truth number 2, and this is truth number 1's important to know, but truth number 1's not why I've been here for 15 years and why I love what I do. Truth number 2, everyone should buy Cutco. Everyone should buy Cutco. A couple just facts on the a couple facts on just the product in general. Number 1, Netflix in college costs more than an essentials. Like if you're in college and you pay for your own Netflix, in 4 years, you spend more on Netflix than an essential set costs. And an essential set lasts for 40 years versus 4 years of something to like melt your mind for a couple hours in it, right? It's $15 a month. Well, that's $180 a year times 4 years. That's $720 spent on Netflix. 10 years of Netflix costs more than a Homemaker Plus 8. 10 years of Netflix costs $1,800. That's more than a Homemaker Plus 8. I know personally, I still have a Netflix subscription. I had one when I was in college. I've spent more than a Homemaker Plus 8 on Netflix. And it's really hard to think of something that someone can buy for just $1,000 that lasts longer, gets used more often. Like for $1,000, you're getting like a frame with no mattress, right? Like if a kid plays traveling sports, it costs more than $1,000 for 1 year of that kid's sport if they're in like Little League, right? If they play video games, like if they have a system and a few games, that's more than $1,000, right? Like you can walk around any city in America and you'll see an 18-year-old with a pair of designer sunglasses, an iPhone in their hand, name brand clothes, nice tennis shoes. They got more than a Homemaker Plus 8 cost just on them wearing around. In a lot of cases, they bought that with their own money. A couple of things that just make Cutco really a no-brainer, and feel free to share these with your customers. Number one, you just look at the price over time, right? Like the Homemaker, it's about $1,500. Certainly not cheap, right? But worth it. That averages out to about 125 bucks or about $150 a year over 10 years. In 10 years, that's an average of $3 a week. Like literally, if they go to Starbucks or Dunkin' once a week, even if they use the app and get like the $3 coffees, they spend more getting Dunkin' once a week than using a Homemaker set, right? Over 5 years, it's only $6 a week, right? Over 5 years, it's literally the equivalent of going to Chick-fil-A one time a week and getting fast food, right? Check this out. Over 20 years, it's $1.50 a month or $1.50 a week, same as buying a candy bar. Over 40 years, it's 75 cents a week. If someone really wanted to, they could just just look over the ground and find 75 cents a week to be able to afford their Homemaker. So every single person, what else can someone spend a couple dollars a week on that's used daily, lasts forever, the best quality? I mean, even just used daily forever, it's really hard to think of anything, especially something you can spend like $3 a week on, right? So, and what's cool is they don't have to buy a Homemaker, right? They have like a galley set. A galley set's more like $2 a week, right? And if you're looking at this video, you might be like, okay, I get it. I'm ready to sell. Like everyone at least needs a Homemaker. Honestly, I'm from a town of 700 people, right? I wasn't seeing ballers. I wasn't seeing like people who drove Mercedes or people who were members of country clubs. I sold some Homemakers. I sold a few signatures, a few ultimates, but I made my living off of starter sets and custom sets because the way I thought about it as a 19-year-old at the time, I was thinking a little smaller than I do now. But I was like, everyone can get at least an essentials or a studio. A studio is like $30 a week. I spend $30 a week on fast food. And I'm 19 years old, right? So the badge of honor, it's all about your sales ratio. It's all about the percentage of people you write up orders for. Because even I don't care how many people spend $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 with you. Because I know you're going to have it happen. Occasionally you're going to do appointments with someone who they've been meaning to get some good knives. They see your product. It's a no-brainer. They had already looked at sets that were $2,000 and $3,000. They see they can get a signature set for what a Wusthof Homemaker costs. And they're like, let's just do that one. That's a much better bang for our buck. And you're going to sell sets. We sell signatures, ultimates, and Homemakers every single day. But even if you don't sell a single block set, what I do expect is half of your customers place orders and your average order is around 300. Even if your average order was 200, if you placed a $200 order 10 times a week, well, you'd sell $2,000 a week for 50 weeks, just saying there's a week or two you're on vacation. That's $100,000 you'd sell for the year. That's over $40,000 in income earned working a part-time job. Even half of that, like to do 10 appointments a week, sell them 5 of them, sell $1,000 a week to make $20,000 working part-time. It's an average of about $500 a week. That's really, really solid income considering you're working the equivalent of like a day, right? The sales ratio, that's the badge of honor. So going back to this 10, 10, 80. How do you determine the 80%? If these two things are true, they should buy. They like the product. They have a source of income. If they like the product and they have a source of income, you will make a sale as long as you do these three things. Number one is confidence. People feel what you believe more than they believe what you say. If you hope people buy, they can feel that. If you know people should buy, they can feel that. I'll say that one more time. If you hope people buy, they can feel that. If you know people should buy, they can feel that. So do you hope people buy Cutco or do you know that they should? Think about that. Our top representatives, they don't go into a demo hoping they make a sale. They go into their appointment wondering what the client's going to get. Our best representatives, they go in wondering what set they're going to sell. So one is confidence. Number two is enthusiasm. Sales is a transfer of enthusiasm. If you want your customer to be a 10, well, you need to be at least a 10. If your customers were like a 5 or a 6 excited about Cutco this weekend, I would ask yourself, where was your energy and enthusiasm? Because if it was a 7, they were probably at a 5. If you were at a 5, they were at like a 2. If you're at a 10, they're at like an 8. The best people who do anything, not just Cutco, but any champions, they know how to flip the switch when it's game time. Whether if you're an athlete or whether you're a surgeon, right? When it's game time, doesn't matter what's happening outside there. When the lights are on, you're focused on what you're doing. A lot of our representatives they go into like demo mode. The same way when a match starts, they get into that competitive set. The same way when your demo starts, like it's game time, right? Don't have your normal talking voice with something that it's your job to be in the spotlight and perform. And then number 3, how you handle a customer's concerns. How you handle a customer's concerns. Because you all face concerns this week, and there's typically 3, which we'll cover in the next video. But one is budget. Like I'd love to get it, but I don't want to spend that much. Easy peasy. We got options for all different budgets. Number 2 is pieces, right? Like I'd love to get it, but I don't know if I would use everything. Cool. Again, we can find what their pieces are. And number 3 is timing. Like, hey, I want to get a bunch of stuff. I just can't do all that right now. Again, super easy to work with. I'm going to teach you how to handle this in the next video. But essentially, you just find out what they can do today, start with that, and then allow them to build their collection over time. So that's for the mindset. I want to review the things we talked about. We're going to talk about your plan. We're going to talk about your list. And we're going to talk about scheduling. And then we're going to wrap up this video. So we already talked about the plan, right? You set your own stuff here. So when you're making your schedule, well, one, block off other stuff. So whatever you use for your calendar, right? If you use a paper calendar, if you use if you use a digital calendar, pause for a moment, look at the next 7 days and look at when can you not do appointments, when's blocked off, and protect that time. Step 2 is you're going to block off the team meeting. Depending on your organization, it may be Wednesday or Thursday. If you're not sure when your team meeting is, you can pause your manager and send them a text message right now. But you want to block off your team meeting time because that's the only time. Now that you're done with training, the flexibility kicks in today. There's only going to be one time a week for 2 hours in a lot of cases, some cases less, where we're going to ask you to protect for Cutco. The third thing is you're going to block off your appointment openings. So you're going to block off your openings. These are the times that you can do an appointment. Even you want to block these off even before you have an appointment booked up, because that way it allows you to see when you can do appointments and makes it really easy to offer times. So I'm going to show you an example. This representative in our office, she uses a Google Calendar, so it makes it really easy to show. Go ahead and pull it up here. So if you look, they put their demo openings, and then as they book it, so like they have an appointment with Angela here at 2 o'clock tomorrow. They have an appointment with Felicia Saturday at 4. This next week they're out of town, so they don't have any. Then when you come back, they're going to start doing appointments on the 16th. They already have some appointments booked here, some appointments booked here. And as they book them, they just put the client's information, and they typically have theirs a month out. Right? So blocking your times, because that makes it very easy when you offer a customer, hey, I can do Thursday at 11 or 1. If they're like, oh, I'm working, it's like, okay, cool. I can do either 7 o'clock on Thursday, or we could do Saturday morning at 10, which would be better for you. So block off your openings. And then the last thing is you're going to plan when you'll schedule. Typically, an hour of scheduling is going to book you 3 to 5 appointments. What I would recommend, you can either pick like 1 30-minute slot a day. That'll book about 2 appointments a day. For your fast start, if you want to, do 2 a day, we'll just do 2, book 2. You probably need 1 30-minute slot for booking per day. If you want to do 3 per day, you do 3, book 3, right? That's going to be probably 1 45-minute slot a day. If you want to do 4 per day, well, you want to book 4 a day as well to keep your next couple days. That's probably 2 30-minute slots. Maybe 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon, or in between appointments. Something like that will keep your schedule filled. So that's for your plan. So take a moment, pause this video, get your plan for the week. Block off your other stuff, block off the team meeting. If you don't know, ask your manager. Block off your openings, plan when you'll schedule. And then the last thing is you're going to set a daily goal. Usually it's 2, 3, or 4 appointments a day over your fast start. Number 2 is your list. There's 2 parts to your list. One, or if you're going through the gears, is your paid practice presentations. These are your first 10 appointments. The objectives here are confidence, experience, and then also referrals, right? You already have gotten some recommendations. So gear 4 are referrals. Now, as far as, getting referrals, it's very easy to go from averaging like 5 to 10 to 20 plus. If you're not averaging at least 5 appointments per appointment, I would recommend just reading the script word for word and using the objections tab. You get at least 5 by promoting the sponsorship. I'm going to include the sponsorship sheet in the notes. So if you want to make a copy, you can. Using this analogy of driving a car, you don't want to go from first gear all the way to 4th gear, right? You could do it, but it would just be more choppy. Also, some of the recommendations you got this weekend aren't really recommendations because they're already people who know of you and you knew of them. You just didn't have their numbers, right? So point number 2, the second gear are prospects. And these are people you refer yourself to. There's a saying, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And regardless if you're well connected or not, this second gear is one of the most important things in Cutco for your future success. Because even if you have people in your network or that you're acquainted with right now, they're not in your network, right? Like if you go to a private school and there's a lot of successful families that go there, even if they know you, the rapport they have with you is you're like on their kid's softball team or you were in their kid's class, right? That's not enough for them to like if you want to be a lawyer and there's someone you go to school with whose parents are a lawyer, based on the fact that you were on a baseball team with them, with their kid, they're not going to recommend you for a law internship. Cutco can be a chance to move those people from acquaintances into your actual network. Because if you reach out to them, that shows initiative. If you sit down with them and you're professional and you're representing a quality product and you build rapport with them, you create a need, like you do all these things that are admirable in the professional world, that takes someone that'll vouch for you. In a 30, 45-minute appointment, you can build a great relationship with somebody and move them from someone you didn't even really know prior to the appointment into someone who would vouch for you on a professional level. Another reason the second gear is so important is it helps you get recommendations, right? If you can recommend yourself to 20, 30, 40, 50 people before you start calling recommendations, it makes it very easy for you to get and ask for recommendations with confidence because you as someone who's younger recommended yourself to a ton of people in the target market. You know, people in our target market are going to know more people than you in that market. And then gear number three is the chicken list. There are people that, initially you might be a little nervous to call, and that's okay. That's why we don't start with those. What you'll notice is as you do more appointments, you're going to build your confidence. And anyone you're kind of nervous to call, reach out to your manager and they can give you a text approach and also an acquaintance approach for calling people that you kind of sort of know. And then you'll be ready to call your recommendations. Because if you just give this a couple weeks, like with Cutco, there's going to be, people that you show. There's going to be people that are referrals, so people you don't know, and then you look at total leads. Right? Week one, let's say you do pretty much everyone's with people you know, right? Let's just say you do 10 appointments with people you know, 0 with people you don't for week one. And let's say you just average 3 recommendations per appointment. Well, now you have 30 leads. Hey, that's solid. But if you can hold off one more week, if you can do 10 appointments with people you know, just for one more week, do 20 instead of 10. Well, now you have, even if you don't get any better, you have 60 new leads. After you've done it 20, 30 times, like you're ready to see, it doesn't matter who you're showing, like you're good at the demo. Week 3, there's probably gonna be some people you haven't seen yet, but it might be like 7 and 3, right? You start calling some of your hot leads, people that are gonna be good, or the person who recommended you told you they love to cook or told you that they would be a great client. Well, even if you average 3 recommendations per appointment, the natural thinking here would be like, oh, well, now you have 90 leads. Well, you don't, because now you would have 81. You had to call some of those leads to book appointments, right? On average, a third of your leads will see you. So out of three recommendations, 1 will book, 1 won't, and then 1 will just never answer, right? So if you're averaging 3 recommendations per appointment, the job's sustainable. If you can average 5, 10, 20, you're building very, very quickly. By week 4, be about half and half. You have 96 leads on your list. And week 5, there might be a couple scragglers, right? But you're pretty much seeing recommendations about your second month in the job. But at this point, you have 100 plus names and numbers, and you're able to do this job for as long as you want to. So as we wrap up this video with what's important now, 1 is communicate your schedule to your manager. So reach out to your manager, schedule a one-on-one to talk about your schedule for the week. Okay. I would do this within the next 48 hours. The sooner, the better. Number 2, do a power hour to build your list. And if I'll give you a tip for asking for numbers, right? You could go about it 2 ways. Like when I did this with my mom, I could ask her for recommendations, like, hey, who do you think I should see? But then she's trying to do my job for me. And I found people tend to prejudge because people don't really know their friends' knife situations. They don't know who's going to see you and who won't. So instead, a better approach is to just ask for numbers. Make a list of the people that you want to reach out to and just ask for those numbers. So, hey, mom, what's Karen Kale's number? Hey, mom, what's Connie and Daniel's number? Hey, mom, what's Coach Danny's number? Right. So take an hour, get all your lists organized, and see if you can add an additional 10 to 20 plus to your list. Number 3, make a copy of the sponsorship sheet in the notes. You'll see that at the bottom of the video. And then number 4, focus on completing your first 10 appointments so you can be officially done with training. And at that point, your manager will teach you how to call recommendations if you would like to do that. So take a moment, do those things. I look forward to connecting with you in video number 2.